Hi everyone. We're going to talk a little bit about remote work, right? Very informal and brief, but relevant overview about remote work. Focus on the message that I'm sure it can add value because there's a lot in depth research about it, a lot of connections. So, remote work, uh, it's a very vast and new subject. We still need a lot of experimentation, trial and error, and research about it. What might work for some companies don't work for others. So there's a vast universe about remote working that we have to take into account: organization type, size of organizations, governance, industry sector, roles, so on and so forth. At the end of the day, it's all about having best practices, aligning mission and vision, uh, and adapting to what works best for you and for the company that you're the owner or you work for. To put a little bit into context, our world spins in a fast and constantly changing wheel, right? And change, we can argue that is one of the only constants in the world. And this changes throughout history from ancient times to what we call now modern times. Change human dynamics. Some of these big changes have the capacity to alter the course of history, such as the recent coronavirus outbreak. That caused a tremendous global impact on people's livelihood and the communities as a whole, according to the World Health Organization. But we lived that. We're still living. We're going through that. So we know that and we're seeing that. Narrowing down to the topic of discussion here, governments and businesses had to adapt quickly to this threat. And a lot of companies migrated to a remote working environment. But contrary to what a lot of people think, remote working didn't just show up out of the blue with the virus. It is a trend. It is something that is growing for the last 2 decades. And under the remote working umbrella, you might have heard or seen somewhere different other names, such as intelligent working, work from home, virtual office, telecommuting, so on and so forth. That is not very relevant for us right now, but it's good to know because it might confuse a little bit our minds when we read all these different things. Sometimes they mean the same thing, right? A little bit of data in 2022, we saw an increase of 48% people working remotely, comparing to 24% before the pandemic. And also in 2022, we saw an increase of 24% just this year, right? There's a lot of data out there, a lot of research happening, a lot of things going on. And they mainly, all of them, at least all that I had access to, which are credible from my own understanding, they point to the same direction. Remote working is increasing. It's kind of obvious if you have some critical thinking and if you look at your surroundings and if you talk to people, you see, and if you look at jobs online and if you research, if you read, you're going to see that. But, Gus, what is remote work? Well, it's valuable to know that there is no universally accepted definition for remote work, but it falls under the umbrella of flexible work arrangement. What is that? Flexibility is when there's regulation and modification of workers' working hours. This flexibility might change, obviously, changes from company to company. Okay. For the purposes of this presentation, remote working will be any work done from for the employer or client using telecommunications and information technology, mainly in a place other than the traditional place of work. All right, guys, what does that even mean? That means that any work that I do for you as my employer, or work that you do for me as my employee, or I do for some client, using my phone, my notebook, my laptop, or my iPad. So telecommunications and information technology, my my line phone if you still have it, uh, in other place other in a place other than the physical office. That is what it means traditional place of work, physical office. So that's very important because some people think that remote work is only working from home. It is not. Remote work is also working from cafe or co-working spaces, okay, or whenever you want to work from the beach or from whatever. That is considered remote working. I chose this definition. I read a lot of definitions, but this one is just straightforward and easy to understand, and and that's it. That's what we want, right? Now, very interesting to know the types of company, remote work company. We have remote friendly company. What does that mean? That means this company have physical office, one or more than one office. These offices might be in the same place, same city, same country, or different countries. And this company encourages remote work behaviors. So you can work from home one or more days during your week or during the month. Some employees can work remotely for extended periods of time. Now, remote first companies are companies that everyone works remotely. There is no office. These companies have no office. Now, some companies might have one office or one headquarters, but the premise here is everyone works remotely. So all the communications, all the protocols, all the safety guidelines, all other guidelines, all collaboration tools, everything is done remotely. And then we have the hybrid remote type of remote work company, which is part of the company or part of the team, the same team works in office and the other part works fully remote. Now, it varies a lot, as I said earlier, the type of company, what do you do, and the size of company, it all represents a factor for remote work. If you're a farmer, there's no way you can be remote first. Some types of jobs, such as IT, perhaps you might need to be there because you're dealing with security, you're dealing with protocols, you're dealing a lot of things where the company needs you in a safe environment, in an environment designed for you to do that. Okay, if you work with marketing, if you work with finances, if you work with design, if you work as a recruiter, there are different jobs where you can do hybrid or remotely. Okay, so it depends, and also depends on the vision of the company. It depends on the mission. It depends on your boss. It depends on the CEO. It depends on the type of governance. You have to answer to the CEO, or you have to answer to your boss, to the manager. How is this company divided? So on and so forth. So some companies are remote first. They always were remote first. Some companies are transitioning to a remote environment. Some companies are experimenting the hybrid remote. Some companies are experimenting the remote friendly. We don't know. Okay, at the end of the day, again, whatever suits you and your company and makes everyone happy and the business happy as well. A few of the current trends of remote working in 2020, 16% of companies worldwide were fully remote. In 2022, 89%, a survey from 2022 says that 89% of employees have worked remotely since March 2020. What does that mean? That means that these people are working remotely now. No, I don't know. I can't tell. But they have a grasp of what is work to remote work. So they have been through a couple of the pros and the cons about remote working. And more than 50% of the United States workforce is remote. And as we saw earlier, it is a trend that has been growing exponentially from the past for the past 20 years. Okay, 91% of growth only in the past 10 years. What is the vision? If we think about the future, if I fast forward my life 10 years, 5 years, what is the future of remote working? How do we see remote working happening? Of course, we see AI. Of course, we see that. Of course, we see new jobs, and a lot of the jobs we know right now disappearing. We see that. And we see that more than 60% of 1,500 hiring managers see more remote working right now and in the future. These people are there on a daily basis. They deal with people, they are hiring people, and they see remote working increasing now and in the future. That is very important to talk to people and to know people that are dealing with that on a daily basis. 90% of workers want to work remotely for the duration of their career. So they want to continue to work remotely. That is very important. So they made a transition and they want to stay remotely. That means that there's something there. They're enjoying it. And their companies as well, apparently. We might say that on a superficial level, but yes, 90%. It is a lot. It is a lot. And in North America, 68% of North Americans prefer to be fully remote. There's different data. I gather different data from different places around the world. Because after all, under our professional vestment, armor, we're human beings. We have very similar needs, right? We all want work-life balance, productivity. We want to be happy. We have struggles. We go to the same emotional roller coasters, same doubts. We doubt ourselves, imposter syndrome. We all go through that. And we see kind of a pattern here in North America, in Europe, in Ireland, other parts of Europe, in Ireland, and in Dubai. There's kind of pattern forming. There's a lot more evidence and also strong suggestions that point to that vision, that support that vision. Now, for employees, remote working is the second most crucial compensation. Look at this. What's the first one, Gus? First one is salary. But remote working surpasses health insurance, vacation days. 77% of respondents say that, right? And 87% of people, of employees, think that companies need to offer flexibility in remote or hybrid working to attract and retain staff. And if I was in North America, and if I asked, would you would you like a chance to work remotely? 87%, that is more than 20,000 Americans said, yes, I would like to work remotely. What does that say? What does that show us? A lot of things we can argue, but narrowing down, the flexible work arrangement is one of the top motivators for job seekers. You as a company need to consider that, and job seekers are considering that. And also, job seekers have a long-term vision about remote working. That means they are planning their careers and even lives, taking into consideration remote work. How does that translate to the real life, practical life? They might change countries. They might change to the countryside. They might change jobs, careers. They might be studying. They might be perfecting themselves with new technologies, with new courses, with the future. Everything that supports working remotely. We have to know that. Okay? It's very important. Now, the impact on employees' well-being. We see increase in work-life balance, apparently at least. We see mental health problems, but not problems as well. It varies. We see an increase or same productivity. We see a lot of isolation, a lot of people struggling with loneliness, a lot of people struggling with overworking, difficulties in unplugging at the end of the day. lack of healthy personal and professional boundaries, and a lot of physical health complications. Okay? People are thinking and they are worried about this lifestyle that might take them to the doctor earlier than they thought they would go to. You can see that 91% of people saw an increase in their work life balance in a remote working in Ireland survey this year, 2022. We also saw more productivity and less stress, right? Now, there is a paradox here because if you see that people overwork, but there is more productivity, what are the real reasons for the more productivity? Would it be overwork? Would it be a better work life balance? Would it be both? What do you think? Fascinating to me is that we see a work life balance, a positive correlation between work life balance and well being. Literature says that, shows that. And we can see here, we can trace a few parallels, right? So, work life balance increasing, people's well being will increase. That's a positive correlation. And we also see that work life balance can be a driver for productivity. So, work life balance, well being, and productivity are positively connected. Because why there's less stress? Well, we all know that if there's more work life balance and more well being, we reduce the chances of being stressed, right? But also because a remote working system, provides more convenience. It makes it easier for people to organize their family and personal responsibilities. We know that you can schedule your doctor, your dentist, you can stay with your daughter, you can take your kids to school, so on and so forth. So that decreases the stress, right? Improving as well your well-being, your work-life balance. Now, Buffer made a research, okay, together with Remote Work and Nomad List. If you don't know, Buffer is a company, a remote company. Buffer is kind of a social media management platform, right? So you can schedule and you can connect different social media accounts, schedule your posts, and if you work with marketing, you have clients, you can put your client's account in there, optimizing the workflow and all of that. So, what struggles people have working remotely? Well, 31% say they don't have struggles. Now, I would argue against that because we might say that these people are not aware or they're not self aware of everything, the temporal awareness and all of that. 31%, okay. But what we want is the negative impact on employees' well being. And they say that they are having difficulty in unplugging at the end of the day. Okay? They're working more. 20% say they're working more. Now, remember what I said about the relation between productivity and overwork? Now, here it goes. A lot of them say they're working more and they have difficulties in unplugging at the end of the day. That means they struggle with creating healthy boundaries between personal and professional life. Okay? Would that be the reason why they're being more productive? And also, we know that, oh, I'm going to work more. I'm going to be online because then my boss or my colleagues see that I'm online and then they like me more or they think I'm doing more things. There's all these components into this equation only. That's only one data, but there's a lot of components into that. A lot of questions we can ask. What do you think? I don't know the answer, but I strongly think that overworking, overworking and having difficulty to unplug It's correlated to the increase in productivity. Maybe not all, but it is correlated until a certain extent because you lack of focus, right? They struggle with lack difficulty in focusing, and you cannot. Human beings cannot focus all the time. So if you're not being able to unplug as well, you're not really focused. And then if you put one plus one together, you have a lack of productivity. So we wonder, will we see a lack of productivity in following years in remote working or not? In some circumstances or not? Okay. So coming back here, people struggle with unplugging at the end of the day, loneliness, lack of motivation, focus, overworking, and communication. Okay, communicate. What type of communication? Well, it's hard to communicate because most of our communication is non-verbal, right? Comes from our body, our gestures, our emotional, the tone of voice, the dynamic of voice, my gestures, right? Your gestures, where you look, the way you look, your smile, everything. And when you are in a remote working environment, you don't have that. There's a lot you can. There's ways to work on that. You can use emojis, for example, to express what you're feeling, a smile, and things like that. But you can only do that in certain situations. So it's tricky. Uh, People have different ways of communicating and of receiving the communication because every person is a world. Okay, every person has its own world and view of the world, and you have personal profiles. Now, let's say that you like to be communicated uh, like this, an email or WhatsApp or whatever, and you're very emotional. So I have to be aware of the words I say and things like that. We can argue that would that work or not? That's working in some companies and some depends on the team you are, but not 100%. You cannot tailor your communication to everyone you're going to talk to, right? That might take a little bit of the natural side of you, the spontaneity, but you can indeed tailor your communication. Now, almost wrapping up, uh, people feel less or more connected after they shift to remote work. 52% say they feel less connected, which corroborates with our data here that they feel lonely and a lot of other data. Okay, guys, loneliness is a big factor if you research about it. You can see loneliness, lack of motivation, mobility. These are all big factors that show up in almost all the research around the internet, the current research at least. Human connection, right, guys? We need human connection. We are humans. We are made from connection. We we there is power in hugging someone. There is power in shaking someone's hand, in looking someone in the eye. We all know that. Hormonal power, right? Mental power, physical power, emotional power. Our bodies change when we are connecting, and also we can argue that there is the sense of belonging, right? Identity, that we are doing something greater than ourselves, and that is very related to the human nature. We are all one. We all have different worlds and lives, but we are all the same when it comes to connection, human nature. I've been through different places around the world, and people struggle for the same things. Right? It changes a little bit in there, but at the end, if you look someone in the eye, they struggle with the same things. Okay? So of course, people feel less connected. Would that connection affect the company, the business? Well, probably, because if you feel less connected with your coworkers, how is your project affected? And if your project is negatively affected, your company will be negatively affected as well. Right? So it's a cascade of events. So the common challenges of employees' well-being, we saw boundaries of work and personal life, isolation, lack of motivation. We can talk in depth about each one of these topics. It's not the purpose here. Uh, Overworking, communication, physical health. Okay, uh, a lot of people are saying that they have more back pain, increase in headaches. They lack mobility now. They lack of movement. Okay, they don't go to the gym. They only go to the kitchen and that's it. They sit for 7 hours a day, and we know that sitting for around 7 hours a day for prolonged periods of time, you can develop back pain. You can develop even other types of conditions. And also for physical health, people only think about that, but we have to take into consideration that ergonomics are important, right? Ergonomics, your table, your chair, the, your monitor, is it at eye level or not? Your plugs, right? The lighting, the sound, the environment you're working in is comfortable or not. It helps your productivity or it helps to decrease your productivity. So all of these are factors, right? For example, the American Chiropractic Association says that poor ergonomics in the workplace can lead to back pain and headaches. And if in a prolonged use of computer or mouse can even lead to carpal tunnel syndrome and neck arm pain. And a poor indoor environment can lead to headaches and pain disorders. So what is a poor indoor environment? All these factors, lighting, sound, uh, noise, right? You're concentrated. That helps in the concentration, hard to focus there. So it's all related. But anyways, we can see here again what we already talked about. Um, that's our relevant overview, a brief overview about remote work. Let me see if there's more. Oh yes, there's more. Some resources and best practices. I'm going to talk about in another opportunity because we are in a half an hour already. And I thank you for being here, and I hope that was of value to you, and you can use that to the greater good, not only for yourself, but if you work in a company, you can use that data to show people and to make people question. And questions empower, um, answers, especially fixed answers, disempower, right? So we have to ask questions. And that's it. Thank you very much.